AVC, Sean from Buzzbomb Records here, coming at you with another video. This is going to be the first in a series that I kind of wanted to do. Kind of start off with, basically giving a roadmap's not the right word, but kind of call it my vinyl evolution from Merle to Maynard. Let's call it that. Basically, going back to some of the first stuff I remember hearing to where I'm at now, with the stuff I'm listening to now, and all that space in between, and kind of where I was in my life and what was going on, and and really how the music kind of maps to that, right? So to not to cop the line from the James Earl Jones's speech in Field of Dreams, but where he says baseball marks the time, so does music. And I think all of us could, pick any number of records from our collection and just, listen to it and just go right back to where you were the first time you heard it, what you were doing, who you were with, where you were living, just all those kind of feelings that kind of come up, as you listen to music. And that's, quite frankly, that's one of the things that I just love about it. And there's certain things in my life, certain time frames that it was really, really important, and there's really this group of albums. I use the term memory burn on my first video, which is kind of what a lot of these are. Obviously I've got thousands of records, but there's a select group that I really kind of go back to time and time again that are probably the most impressive in terms of just the memory. So that's kind of what this is. Again, it's just probably not for everybody. Probably won't be interesting to everybody. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll spark some conversation. That's kind of what I'm hoping. But this is probably more for my family, quite honestly, for them to kind of look back. And I know my brother and sister will see this and either agree. And there may be a couple that they disagree with, and that's cool. I'd be interested to hear what they say. But anyway, this is the first, again, in the series. It's called Parentage. That's the first stuff I remember hearing. It was the stuff coming out of the stereo, my parents' stereo, when I was a little kid. And so this is what was playing, man. So I'm going to start with one that everybody has seen a million times. Gets a lot of jokes about it. It's in every dollar bin, I know. It's at every thrift store, I know. It's Herb Albert Tijuana Brass, and it's in every thrift store. It's in every dollar bin because they sold 1 million of these things. So my parents had one of those millions, and they played the crap out of this. Especially my mom really played this record a lot. So that first song, Taste of Honey, if you haven't heard it, you've heard it. Guarantee you. You just don't know you've heard it yet, but you've heard it. So this is again one of their first records that I remember hearing. I think this is 1966. Yeah, 1966. Came on this old original A&M label. That's one of the things I love about these old records, are the label designs. I think they're really cool. That one's on A&M. And a cool inner, really cool inner sleeve that thing came in. So that's number one. Number two, here's another guy. You see this guy around. He's got way more popular records than this. This is Tom Jones, I Who Have Nothing. What was funny was when I was digging through these, I put this record on and I remember the songs. I remember hearing it, but I don't remember, nothing really kind of stood out as anything that I thought was ever a hit. Again, I could be wrong. I knew the songs because I've heard them a million times, but I don't know if there was really anything on here that was a hit. This was 1970 is when this guy came out. Came out on another, again, cool freaking label, on the Parrot. I love that label. Don't know a ton about it. I think it's part of London. It is distributed by London Records. And then that one was another one, came into one of these kind of sleeves that had a bunch of stuff on it. So cool. Well, there's a little Tom Jones for you. Next in the stack, a little folky, little folk kind of stuff. Little Peter, Paul, and Mary. So a little Lemon Tree. Again, I hear people joke about this kind of stuff all the time. My parents loved it. Heard this record a lot. This kind of goes back to my parents living in San Francisco in the early 60s. And so folk was big time there. So this would have been before, you know, Summer of Love and all that kind of stuff. This would have been in like 62 kind of time frame. So Peter, Paul, and Mary, they love these guys. There's another one in here that I'll show here in a minute. That was also real big, that kind of time frame. What's funny is when I go through these, you're not going to see a Beatles record. You're not going to see a Hendrix record. You know, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I would love to say that, yeah, man, I grew up on Hendrix and all these other cool bands. And even though I'd heard those at the time, you know, my parents really weren't into that kind of music. My parents were into this stuff, as you see here. And so that's kind of what I grew up into. I didn't hear Beatles, I think, until, I think I heard Paul McCartney, honestly, on AM radio in Wings before I really heard a Beatles song or really even knew who the Beatles were. So, but this stuff is what I heard first. So there's the Peter, Paul, and Mary. Again, look how cool that label is. Warner Brothers label. So this was 1962. So when this one was released. I won't show the inner on that. It's no big deal. This one here, again, it's punching bag a lot. These guys get punched a lot. But they sold a ton of records. This one's kind of hard to see. This is the Carpenters. This is the greatest hits. That's another thing you're going to find as I go through these. Parents are big fans of the greatest hits records. So I got lots of greatest hits. And that's cool, you know. They liked being able to put one record on and hear everything they wanted to hear out of the artist. So nothing wrong with greatest hits. So this is the Carpenters. This is a cool gatefold. Old school kind of gatefold. Funny story on this is I went to pull this record and it's not in the jacket. I mean, the record's not in the jacket. So I remember cleaning this thing like a long time ago, when I was kind of sorting records at one point. I'm kind of putting together a section of my parents' stuff, and I swear to God, I pulled this and cleaned it. However, it's not in the jacket, which means this record is in some other jacket in some randomized album on my shelf. Good luck at finding that, man. So that one was 70. That one was 73 when that one came out. Another one, again, this is all such common stuff, but that's what my parents were into. Little JD, John Denver, again, greatest hits. I mean, it's still good music, man. And again, I hear this stuff. It's quintessential 70s, early 70s. This was 73 as well, you know. And again, just it's a greatest hits record, so it's chock full of greatest hits. But you can't go wrong with a little JD. That one was on, again, that was on the Orange RCAs. That's on that label there. And then the sleeve was, you kind of can see that. Here's the sleeve. I think this had basically the credits and stuff on here. Anyway, listen to that record a lot. This next one coming up here, this is the other group I wanted to, they kind of fit with the Peter, Paul, and Mary story. So the timeline doesn't necessarily fit. But Kingston Trio, my dad loved these guys. This was their first record here, this one here, which I think is 1958 is when this thing came out. But I guess these guys were playing a lot, as he used to tell us stories, that these guys were playing at like clubs or coffee houses that were like right in their neighborhood, like when they lived in San Francisco proper. And so they saw these guys all the time, I guess. So again, popular kind of again that folk kind of crowd. Again, early '60s. This was 1958, but in fact, I got three more Kingston Trio records that my dad had. They were all kind of that '58, I think, '58 through '60 kind of time frame. The interesting story on here, I think Sloop John B is on here, which anybody knows Beach Boys. There's a connection there. This also has Tom Dooley. Again, there's probably songs on here that you would probably know if you heard them. But again, Dad listened to those guys a lot. That's on the Capitol Rainbow. And I don't know if you can see it. There's like the hugest freaking ding in this, the hugest scratch, which is why I'm still kind of carrying them by the edges, but most of these things are just freaking roached. Cool sleeve. And again, the reason they're roached, anybody who has, or I guess I'm aging myself, but anybody who grew up in the 70s, or parents, are from the 50s or 60s, I'm sure there were audiophile stuff back then, but most people had, I think, like what my parents had, which is the all-in-one, Sears stereo system, which had your cassette deck or 8-track. I think my brothers had the 8-track receiver and then turntable. And it was basically an all-in-one kind of, they'd be kind of like, some were a little bigger than others, but you had those, or you had the big, huge console thing, which is like a piece of furniture, which I've actually got a couple of those upstairs in kind of sort of working order. But so you either had the big console thing or you had the Sears stereo. So my parents had the Sears one, and if you also remember that one of the features of those old systems was they had the big huge spindle. The thing was like that long, and you would stack your records on the top. So it had this spindle and then like a little kind of catch and it was fully automated. So you could click the little switch thing and the catch would pull, and then a record would basically drop from where it was sitting on top of the spindle and then drop down on the platter and it would play. Well, as you can imagine, you stack, which my parents did, 5 or 6 records. They would stack them on top of that spindle, and they're just up there rubbing against each other, and you drop it to the turntable, wham! Hit the turntable and just spin a little bit, and it's just freaking just rotating underneath it, just scratching the crap out of it. But nobody cared. They didn't care. So none of these records are in any kind of condition other than that have been played a million times on the Sears and Roebuck stereo with the drop and needle thing. Anyway, that's what they had, and they liked it. So this was my mother's probably favorite. Little Helen Reddy. So I think if I look at this stack, no, actually the next one's my mom's favorite. This would have been her second favorite. So Helen Reddy, again, greatest hits. I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. Little Delta Dawn's on this. I think a couple folks made that song popular. So anyway, Helen Reddy's greatest hits. That was 1975. And that's on this Capitol. If I could get it in the screenshot. I guess it's technically the orange Capitol. Yeah, mid-70s kind of Capitol. And that one had a custom sleeve in it. Had the lyrics. 1975. This one here, my mom's number one favorite, probably out of all of these ones of her, this is the one that reminds me most of her. One song in particular, Quando, Quando, Quando. Awesome track, man. Little Engelbert Humperdinck Fitzbunwalla Anybody knows that reference? Anyway, Engelbert Humperdinck, greatest hits. This is another one. I put this on now, and I listen to it, and especially when Quando comes on, and I am freaking 8 years old, sitting in the living room sorting baseball cards, hearing this in the background. So my mom loved this record, and I still, out of all the ones of hers, I spin this one every once in a while. And actually, I think in fact, I know I've got the CD of this too. So I probably listen to that more than anything else. And again, this one was on the Parrot London Records label, circa 1974. Again, had the similar sleeve to the other one. Ooh, Let It Bleed. I didn't notice that. Yeah, right there. Cool. Those stones on there. Other stuff on there. ZZ Top's first album. There's some cool stuff on that sleeve. Bruh. Check it. As I'm looking at the other side. Yeah, more stones. Yeah, right on. Alright, so we're kind of getting more towards the upper half here of the top records. I'm 16 minutes in, so I gotta hurry up. It's Elvis. Golden Records. This is the 71 press. Anyway, I mean every song on this, Hound Dog, All Shook Up, Heartbreak Hotel, Jailhouse Rock, Don't Be Cruel. I mean, Love Me Tender, Treat Me Nice. I mean, they're all obviously they're top records because they're Elvis's golden records. But this particular, I mean, and again, you're gonna see collections of Elvis all over the place. This just happens to be the one that my folks had. And again, they repressed this a couple of times. And again, I think this one is, what did I say? The 71. This is a 71 press. I'm sorry. I said something different. So, Elvis. That one's on the RCA. Again, full sleeve. Now we're getting into my dad's stuff. Not that Elvis wasn't my dad's stuff, but you're going to start seeing some country coming around here. Marty Robbins, greatest hits. This is one of my dad's faves. One of his top faves. Pretty much everything else was my dad's favorite stuff. But this one here, he also had the cassette of this, or it might have been the 8-track, but Going Fishing. I mean, we used to listen to this all the time. Kalijah, the song that's on here, I think it's on, it might even be on one of these other records, but the version that's on here, the Kalijah version on here, I can hear him singing it now, man. I can hear him singing it now, but he loved this guy. Little Devil Woman that's on here too. My mom did not like me listening to that song because she thought it was dirty. So I wasn't supposed to listen to Devil Woman, but I did. Classic 70s, yeah, this would have been 72. 70s Columbia label. That's plain inner sleeve, so no need to show that. This next one, again, the album itself is going to date. And again, I know they pressed this several times, but this is Johnny Cash Sings. I've got, I think, an original of this up on the wall upstairs. This particular press would have been 66. I think originally came out in the 50s, maybe 58, something like that. But so I've got a couple of these. I Walk the Line. There's a couple other tunes on here, obviously, but I shouldn't say obviously. We're not supposed to say obviously because everybody doesn't always know. But again, this is what started Johnny. Johnny's still one of my favorite guys of all time. I've got, pretty much, I think I have all of his, what I would call the regular release stuff. There's a lot of oddball kind of things out there, but most of his regular release stuff I'm pretty sure I have. And I still listen to Johnny today. That's Johnny Sings. Another awesome label. How cool is the Sun label. I just think that's a great label. Plain sleeve. Another one. Billy Hurst, if you see this, this is where we're cut from the same cloth, brother. So this is I've had this at number 4, but I've heard, I think I'd mentioned this on my, I think it was in one of the chats or something we were doing last week. I've been hearing this since the day I was born. So even though this press is from what is this, 76, I've been hearing these songs since the day I was born in some way. So there's other records I've got, but this is the one he played the most, just again because it's greatest hits. Another one I've got in CD, still listen to this to this day. I still like this way better than Junior. Sorry, but I do. And it's just, I mean, the vintage sound of these recordings, I think is the other thing that makes it so cool. Very rudimentary stuff. The way these were recorded, just like the original, when you listen to original blues stuff, very rudimentary, very raw. Hank Sr. I mean, cheating. I mean, look at the songs on the first songs. Side 1, Your Cheating Heart, Moving On Over, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, Honky Tonk Blues, My Heart Would Know, and then here we go. Kalijah's on here. That's what I thought. So this is the version of Kalijah. It's on there. But my dad liked the Marty Robbins version better. This one's on MGM. Cool label. Again, plain sleeves. Number 3 is this guy here. This is his first record, Mr. Willie Nelson, and then I wrote. So my dad had lots of Willie stuff. I'm putting this up there just because this is the first one he had, and this has Crazy on it and Hello Walls. Crazy, obviously the most popular one probably that he's written, that was famed by Miss Patsy Cline, but the version on here, the original Willie version. So cool record. The next one I'm going to show is actually the one he listened to till it just wore out to nothing. Oh, real quick, this the other original Willie's on that Liberty label. That's a cool label. This is the one. So, I mean, this thing is so roached. I mean, this has been played. I actually tried to do. I don't know why I was cheaping out, and I was like, I'm going to do a vinyl transfer of this one, and digitize it. And I did it, but it's so bad. The condition is so bad that I just need to go just get the CD or something. Or there's probably a repress of this somewhere. But this one's kind of older. This is 1978. But of all of the Willie stuff, he liked this one best. Again, probably because it's live, so it's a lot of the greatest hits. There's a lot of medley kind of stuff on here, which I'm not that big a fan of. But this was Willie kind of in his prime. Was back mid 70s, which is what this was. It's got a cool gatefold. Another thing there, if you haven't seen this one around before. Yeah. Every Willie song you could possibly think of would be on there. That one's on the, again, mid 70s Columbia. Plain sleeves. Number 2. It was hard to choose between number 1 and 2. Very difficult, but I mean, so these could kind of be interchanged, but they're both 1 or 2. So, I mean, if you want to think about my roots and some of the music I listened to, and probably more about the attitude of the music I ended up getting to, which is more the hard rock punk kind of stuff, it came from here, man. It came from here. And the attitude of these outlaw guys, and this is just the one record that was this was the one that started it. But there's obviously a lot of guys in this genre, and that's the country stuff that I generally like. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I like a lot of stuff across the board. But the Outlaw is probably my favorite kind of stuff. And this record in particular, I mean, good grief, this was 76. So I would have been, what, 9, 10 when this came out. But listen to it. I still listen to this one to this day. Still one of my favorite country records of all time. I'm sure I'm not alone in that regard. But, you know, my heroes have always been cowboys, honky tonk heroes. My dad's couple other favorites on here. T for Texas. And Put Another Log on the Fire. He freaking loved singing those songs. RCA. Again, Plain Sleeve. And then, drum roll please, number 1. Actually, it wasn't that hard to pick this. It actually wasn't. It was not hard at all. This is a record I probably should have said that I've listened to more than anything else in my entire life, because I've been hearing this. This came out in 1972. I've been hearing it since 1972, so since I was 5 or 6. So this is one of the first. This is in fact one of the very first records I ever remember hearing. The first songs I ever remember hearing. And again, my dad listened to this till the day he died. I still listen to it now. It's one of my favorite records of all time. It's going to be in my top 10 of all time. I love Merle Haggard. There's, you know, I didn't really. There was that time period of the 80s, kind of that mid 80s, kind of. I kind of lost. I shouldn't say lost my way with Merle, but Merle was, you know, he was still always kind of the first guy I kind of looked to. And again, kind of the rebellious. I mean, in the lyrics and the songs on here, I mean, it's just hardcore stuff, and which is why I think it's so cool. But you know, No Reason to Quit in particular. I mean, that could have been my dad's mantra, quite honestly. But he loved that song. So Merle's number 1, man. Merle is where it started for me. It's my number 1 of my parents' records. So in this Capitol. And so yeah, that's it, man. That's my parentage. That's where it all started for me. Next phase is going to be let's call it early 70s. You know, kind of there's some overlap between like these records and then some of the couple first ones that I got as a kid. So we'll go into those next time. But till then, you know, hope everybody's well. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks.